Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. Hey, shout out to Chase Holmes or Signs here on YouTube. Shout out for the intro beats we're hearing. Shout out to Chase Holmes. Yeah, you already know. Good looking out. I just wanted to continue today, get back into a little of the investigation, kind of go over it, but at the same time, go over a new book, going over the research, the information here. How does Israel connect to the ancient British Isles? All right, we're gonna go over some more information from another book today. This is part 4 of the series, Israel and the Nations of Europe. Check out the playlist. If you go to my homepage, go to my playlist tab, you can find a playlist called Ancient Israelites in the Nations of Europe. All right, if you missed the previous parts, you can have all the context. All right. This one's almost 2.5 hours. The second one as well, the third one as well, So part 4, here we go. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in right now in the live chat. Oh, wow. Guys, remember, if the music is too loud, just let me know. It's hard to tell on my end. Wow. Yeah. Just looking at all the names in the chat. Blessings. Thanks for being here on your Monday. A strong beginning. Not a week, right? Not the beginning of a week, but the beginning of strong. Being strong. Staying strong. All right. So make sure to catch the playlist if you haven't. Welcome. So we're going to get into the book real quick, Jacob's Pillar, a biblical historical study by Captain E. Raymond or E. Raymond Cap. And these are his credentials, MAA, IA, FSA, Scott, right? And this is the cover again, Jacob's Pillar by E. Raymond. Captain E. Raymond. Sorry, guys. Wow. Yeah. Test. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. This is from 1977. And again, just to have the full context, make sure to catch previous videos. We're going to pick up belly flop right here to this part of the book. All right. And it says here, Ezekiel's Riddle. The scriptures are silent concerning Jeremiah's whereabouts after describing his journey to Egypt. But we have every reason to believe God would see it that he was preserved to accomplish the building and planting, which he was commissioned to do. Remember, he was commissioned to do that in scripture. Planting what? The royal house, the daughters of Zedekiah's, the royal line, the survivors, right? Remember to get the previous videos for all the context of this part of the Bible, the history, what we're talking about. But just real quick, Jeremiah ended up with the daughters of King Zedekiah because all the king had been taken to Babylon and all the male heirs slain. On this line of Phares, of the line of Judah. But we have every reason, he says, to believe that they actually did survive. The daughters of King Zedekiah became the prophet's wards, because God had promised that his covenant with David would not be broken and that David would never lack a seed to reign upon his throne. The building and planting obviously had to do with preserving this royal branch of the house of David. This brings us to all important question. What happened to this royal party after they left Egypt? Where did they go? Remember, when we're talking about Egypt, we're talking about real ancient Egypt, to marry the real Holy Land. We're just talking about the Americas, all right? I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Thanks for tuning in. All right. But where did they go? One important clue is found in the riddle of Ezekiel chapter 17, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle, and speak a parable unto the house of Israel, and say, Thus says the Lord God, a great eagle with great wings, long-winged, full of feathers, which had diverse colors, came unto Lebanon, and took the highest branch of the cedar. He cropped off the top of his young twigs and carried it into a land of traffic. He set it in a city of merchants. He took also the seed of the land and planted it in a fruitful field. He placed it by great waters and set it as a willow tree, and it became a spreading vine of low stature, whose branches turned toward him, and the roots thereof were under him. So it became a vine and brought forth branches and shot forth springs. Right? That's the riddle. Right? Ezekiel 17:1-6. The first verses of the parable introduce a great eagle. It is used by the prophet to symbolize the Babylonian ruler Nebuchadnezzar. He had succeeded to the sovereignty of the Gentile succession of empires. Daniel 2:31-45, destined to control the world during the absence of Israel from her own land. The eagle was an Assyrian emblem, and this fact is probably referred to in Habakkuk 1:8. The eagle-headed deity of the Assyrian sculptures is that of the god Nisroch. In the representations of battle scenes, trained birds of this order are frequently shown accompanying the Assyrian warriors into battle. Nebuchadnezzar invaded Lebanon, home of the famous cedar trees in southern Syria. Again, thus to hijack with their geographical locations. The Lebanon, they say, is supposed to be the biblical one. It's a little patch of forest they got in Lebanon today. It's not the same as what they're talking about when they're saying the cedars of God. Either way, let's just go with the flow. This was the home of the Hebrew patriarchs after their migration from Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, South America, where Isaac and Jacob later obtained their wives. The royal dynasty of Israel might be likened unto a great cedar of Lebanon. The highest branch of the cedar and the top of these young twigs represent King Joachim and the princes of Judah removed to Babylon in the land of traffic. Nebuchadnezzar also took of the seed of the land and planted it as a willow tree in a fruitful field by the great waters. Vast numbers of willows line the waterways of Mesopotamia. The roots of the trees help to hold the mud banks together. In this respect, it is a fitting symbol for a country that depended for its existence upon irrigation and waterborne trade, as did Mesopotamia in general and Babylon in particular. After Joachim was taken to Babylon, his brother Zedekiah was made a puppet ruler of Nebuchadnezzar. The eagle, yeah. Zedekiah was planted figuratively by the great waters of the Euphrates upon which he too was to depend for his existence. This seed of the cedar tree planted like a willow of Babylon became a vine and brought forth branches and shot forth springs. Here's an ingenious intermingling of national symbols. The cedar, typifying the house of David, was set up to grow both as a Babylonian willow and as a vine, which is the symbol of Joseph and the birthright. All this was done as part of Nebuchadnezzar's great plan to establish sovereignty over Israel. This puppet state became only a vine of low stature. It could not compare with the former exalted state of the servant nation, for out of all the 12 tribes of Israel, only a badly shattered remnant of the kingdom of Judah was left. The riddle continues with the introduction of another great eagle. There was also another great eagle with great wings and many feathers, and behold, this vine did bend her roots toward him, and shot forth her branches toward him, that he might water it by the furrows of her plantation. It was planted in a good soil by great waters, that it might bring forth branches, and that it might bear fruit, that it might be a goodly vine, or godly vine. Say thou, thus said the Lord God, shall it prosper? Shall he not pull up the roots thereof, and cut off the fruit thereof, that it wither? It shall wither in all the leaves of her spring, even without great power, or many people to pluck it up by the roots thereof. Yet behold, being planted, shall it prosper? Shall it not utterly wither? When the east wind touches it, it shall wither in the furrows where it grew. Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 17, 7, 10, 7, 1, 7. A number. The second great eagle was the Pharaoh of Egypt, who was approached by the Zedekiah in hope of deliverance from the Babylonian king. The Egyptians sent forth to the assistance of the king of Judah, but it was defeated by Nebuchadnezzar's army. Zedekiah and all his sons were taken to Babylon to meet their unhappy end, and Jerusalem was destroyed. This was the dreadful fulfillment. The roots of the plant were torn up, and its fruit was cut off. Zedekiah saw his son slain in his sight. All right, Zedekiah didn't have no male heirs left. Talking about the line of Phares here, guys. He saw his son slain in his sight, and that's in scripture. I've shown it in the previous parts. And then his own eyes were put out. Ezekiel continues, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, say now to the rebellious house, know ye not what these things mean? Tell them, behold, the king of Babylon is come to Jerusalem, and has taken the king thereof, and the princes thereof, and led them with him to Babylon, and has taken of the king's seed, and made a covenant with him. He has also taken the mighty of the land, that the kingdom might be base, that it might not lift itself up, that by keeping his covenant it might stand. But he rebelled against him, and sending him ambassadors into Egypt, that they might give him horses and much people. Shall he prosper? Shall he escape that doeth such things, or shall he break the covenant and be delivered? As I live, says the Lord God, surely in the place where the king dwelleth that made him king, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he brake, even with him in the midst of Babylon he shall die. Neither shall Pharaoh with his mighty army and great company make for him in the war, by casting up mounts and building forts, by casting up mounts. See that? Mounts, and building forts, to cut off many persons. Seeing he despised the oath by breaking the covenant, when lo he had given his hand, and has done all these things, he shall not escape. Therefore thus says the Lord God, as I live, surely mine oath that he had despised, and my covenant had he had broken, even it will I recompense upon his own head, and I will spread my net upon him, and he shall be taken in my snare, and I will bring him to Babylon, and will plead with him there for his trespass that has trespassed against me. And all his fugitives with all his bands shall fall by the sword, and they that remain shall be scattered toward all winds, and ye shall know that I am Lord, have spoken it. So that's Ezekiel 17, all right? 12:21, Ezekiel's letting you know what's about to happen. The second part of the parable, second great eagle, is set up on the contrast of the first great eagle, which saw how the aspirations of the kings of Judah were brought to naught. Their failures, however, were not to be allowed to annul the promises of perpetuity made to the house of David. Despite the fact that the male succession to the throne apparently ended with the death of Zedekiah's sons, there was yet a method for the continuation of the royal line, the right of female succession as granted by Hebrew law. The allegory employed from verse 22 onwards of Ezekiel's riddle provides the feminine link. Thus says the Lord God, I will also take the highest branch of the high cedar, and will set it. I will crop off from the top of his young twigs a tender one, and will plant it upon an high mountain eminent. In the mountain of the height of Israel will I plant it, and it shall bring forth boughs, and bear fruit, and be a goodly or godly cedar. And under it shall dwell and fowl of every wing. In the shadow of the branches thereof shall they dwell. And all the trees of the field shall know that I, the Lord, have brought down the high tree. I have exalted the low tree, have dried up the green tree, and have made the dry tree to flourish. I, the Lord, have spoken and have done it. Ezekiel 17, 22, 24. All right, so, before I continue, not a lot of people like, how could all the males and it's supposed to go from them? Remember, we're talking about only the Phares side. There's still the line of Zarah, right? That's where it's about to get to. So we got the princesses surviving, the daughters of Zedekiah surviving. And that's the line of Phares, the sons of Judah, from Tamar, Phares, and Perez, remember? And sorry, Phares and Sarah. Yeah, Phares is Perez. So this is the side of Phares, where King David is from, and Zedekiah, right? It says in the grammatical structure of the text of verse 22, the words branch, the high, it's the cedars and twigs are feminine, whereas the masculine could have been used in each case. These feminine words should be taken as being in some way prophetically connected, since the highest branch refers to the royal family of Zedekiah, the high cedar, the royal house of David. It follows that the tender twig would indicate a female of the royal family, Zedekiah. The king's daughters would have been the only individuals who were in a position to perpetuate the Davidic line. With the end of the male succession of the throne of David, as recorded in the Bible, we look for the continuation of that line and one of the king's daughters taken by Jeremiah into Egypt. Jeremiah 43:6. We are not told in the scriptures how many king's daughters there were, or any of their names, nor does the Bible give any historical narrative of what happened to these princesses beyond telling us that they were taken to Egypt with Jeremiah, Baruch describing others. But in our view, the prophetic parable that we are now considering may reasonably be taken as applying to one of them. Also, we may assume that the royal line of David would be reestablished in Israel, in and a high mountain, and eminent in the mountain, future nation of the height, Hebrew high place of Israel. Now that the house of Judah was broken forever, the royal line was to be transferred to the house of Israel. This is entirely in keeping with the parables of potter's vessels. The house of Judah was commanded by Jeremiah to get a potter's earthen bottle, fired pottery, with which he was to demonstrate the judgment upon Judah. Jeremiah was told to take some of the leaders among the people and the priests and go to the valley opposite the pottery gate, where he was to proclaim a message of judgment upon them for their evil ways. He was to then break the bottle in the sight of those who went with him, and say to them, "Thus said the Lord of hosts, even so I will break this people in this city. Even so will I break these people in this city, and one breaketh a potter's vessel that cannot be made whole again." Jeremiah 19:11. All right, it's gonna get to some interesting things here. Let's just go with it. It says, contrasting the illustration of the house of Judah, the house of Israel's condition was that of a vessel of clay, damaged in the making, but still workable clay, capable of being reshaped. And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to make it. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter? Said the Lord. Behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are ye in mine hand, O house of Israel. Jeremiah 18:4-6. The illustration alone is sufficient to establish the house of Israel and the house of Judah as two separate and distinct peoples. A further prophecy of the transferring of David's throne from the house of Judah is found in Ezekiel 2. And thou profane wicked prince of Israel, whose day is come, when iniquity shall have an end, thus said the Lord God, remove the diadem and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low, and abase him that is high. I will overturn it, and it shall be not more overturned until the Messiah come, whose right it is, and I will give it, the throne of David, to him. Ezekiel 21:25-27. In the above prophecy of Ezekiel, the accepted interpretation of the profane wicked prince, the one that was high, is that he was Zedekiah, king of Judah. It is he who was to be brought down. But who was the low one referred to? Who was to be exalted? the one that was ruled over at the time the words were spoken to? To answer this question, it is necessary to return to an incident in the 38th chapter of Genesis, which is related with such explicit detail that it must be regarded as highly significant. Usually, in such cases, the dialogue foreshadows common events. In the biblical narrative, Judah, the son of Jacob, who was to be the father of the future kings of the covenant people, Brit, covenant people, married a Canaanitish woman. But the Canaanites were an abomination to the Lord because of their Baal worship and other unrighteous practices. Therefore, none of the sons of this marriage were allowed to become progenitors of the promised royal line. Two of the sons by this marriage died, and in the course of time, the Canaanitish wife also died. Then the scriptures tell of how Tamar, a woman who had been living a celibate life for years, but who longed for motherhood, became the mother of twins of Judah. The recorded incidents concerning the birth of Judah's twins boys are also meaningful. The midwife in such case, to distinguish the elder for the right of inheritance, had made ready a scarlet thread, with which to mark the one who should be the rightful heir. All right, remember the previous parts, right? The scarlet thread and the red hand that we see in the coat of arms. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, "This came out first." And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out. And she said, "How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee." Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother, that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name called Zarah. That's Genesis 38. 28, 30, all right? So if you don't understand, basically, according to the story, you know how they say the firstborn is the one who inherits the royal line and the birthright and all that. So Sarah put out his hand first. They say his hand, so he got a scarlet thread put around his hand just to, you know, distinguish them when they were born. And then all of a sudden, his brother reached out. He cut him, literally like cut in line, like that's what they're trying to say. And then Pharez was the one who came out first and got the royal line, and then that's where King David comes out of. And so Sarah and his descendants lost the privilege. All right, you guys understand? A Claiborne merit, thank you, appreciate that, appreciate that. So there was always another line of Judah, is what I'm trying to show you. And as you saw in the previous parts, this line of Judah had already been in the British Isles. You know, the lines of Sarah, when the daughters of Zedekiah, which is from the line of Pharez, had arrived there. All right. So it says there could be no other significance here than that both of those twins were to be inheritors of the birthright somewhere along the line of descendants. Naturally, Pharez, the firstborn, was to come first. It was from him that David, the first king from the tribe of Judah, descended. Saul, the first king over the 12 tribes, was a Benjaminite. But the midwife said, "This breach be upon thee." Moffat translate this remark, "What a breach you have made for yourself." This would clearly indicate that somewhere in the descent of the Pharez line there would be a break in the sequence, all right? There would be a break. The royal line of Pharez established in David was unbroken until the command of the Lord was given concerning Zedekiah. Take off the crown, exalt him that is low, and abase him that is high. When Zedekiah was dethroned, and all his sons were slain, there certainly was a breach in the line of Pharez, for not another king was reigned over the tribe of Judah. But as we have seen, a daughter was to be planted in a distant land. However, the command was to exalt him that was low, or the non-ruling line of Judah. This had to be Sarah, the prince of the scarlet cord. This had to be what? Sarah, the prince of the scarlet cord. In other words, the Sarah branch of the royal house of Judah seemed destined to supersede the Pharez branch. It says here, Sarah, the prince of the scarlet thread. There is very little in the scripture that applies specifically to Sarah, the prince of Judah. His immediate posterity is given as follows. And the sons of Sarah, Simri. All right, where this is a progenitor of a whole people here. And you got Ethan, a whole progenitor too, Herman or He-Man. You got his name spelled He-Man in other verses and other versions of the Bible. And then you got Kalko or Colchis, the Greeks Colchis, I believe. And then you got Dara, which is another versions of Bibles, Darda. Darda, guys, is the progenitor of the Dardanelles, who are progenitors of the Trojans who founded Troy. It was through the line of Judah, through Darda, the grandson of Judah, through the son of Sarah, right? Remember, but Sarah never got the right to rule. Okay, so all these sons of Sarah had, nations as well. Darda being the Troy, and through Troy, we get other lines, right? We're gonna see. I got future videos on that too as well. Meant to get on that. But that's from 1 Chronicles 2:6. Says 2 of his descendants are given as authors of certain of the Psalms. And Solomon is described as having wisdom greater than Ethan, the Ezrahite, and Herman, and Calco, and Darda. There you go. This is what I was saying. Darda. Dardanus. Darda is Dardanus, the Greek Dardanus. Supposed son of Zeus. Zeus is Judah, or Sarah. Zeus, yeah, of the line of Judah. 1 Kings 4:31. However, there is a bountiful supply of data and historical records, generally overlooked by Bible scholars, which sheds light on the fulfillment of Jeremiah's commission. It seems certain that the family of Sarah aspired to the scepter of Judah, but failed to attain their ambitions. After a time, Sarah's entire household seems to have migrated out of Palestine, or the real Holy Land, where the scriptures allow the record of Sarah's lines to lapse. We believe purposely. We find secular history provides the necessary clues when properly fitted together. These enable us to blend the whole into one continuous recital down to the present day. An examination of some of the historical clues reveals that Darda, the Egyptian, listen, son of Sarah, was Dardanus, all right? I didn't even know they were going to get into that. I'm just, see? The Egyptian founder of Troy, right? That's a grandson of Judah, guys. Darda is Dardanus, the Egyptian founder of Troy, so-called Egyptian because they came out of Egypt before they ended up in the British Isles, right? Or in Troy, in the Greek territory, so-called Greek. Hecataeus therefore tells us that the Egyptians, formerly being troubled by calamities, in order that the divine wrath might be averted, expelled all the aliens gathered together in Egypt. Of these, some under their leaders Danos or Danus, Dan, and Cadmus migrated to Greece. All right, they're expelling people who are not Egyptian. Right, Cadmus was coming out of the Exodus. Remember, we got this from the other Greek historian Diodorus. Cadmus, Calco, all these people, right? Israelites migrated to so-called Greece. And you get that out of the Fragmenta Histocorum by Muller, Volume 2, copied from the works of Hecataeus of Abdera, a 4th century BC Greek historian, right? Apart from Diodorus. The calamities referred to were obviously the plagues which God brought down on the Egyptians. Remember that part of the Prince of Egypt, right? The cartoon, right? Moses, the story of Moses, what happened? Gotta let my people go. He didn't want to, he got the plague. So that's the calamities he was talking about. They're writing about it in a historical book. That's how Cadmus and all these people came out with the Israelites out of the Exodus, ended up in so-called Greek territories. All right, and these are your so-called aliens, and these aliens again were the Israelites, as it says here, some of whom migrated to Greece with Danus and Cadmus, while others under the leadership of Moses made their exodus to the wilderness of Sinai. Everybody didn't follow Moses, basically, all right? Diodorus gives us another version of the same story. Now, the Egyptians say that also after these events, a great number of colonies were spread from Egypt all over the inhabited world. They say also that those who set forth with Danaus, likewise from Egypt, settled what is practically the oldest city of Greece, Argos, okay? Who? Hebrews. And that the nations of the Colchi in Pontus and that of the Jews, remnant of Judah, which lies between Arabia and Syria, were founded as colonies by certain emigrants from their country. And this is the reason why it is a long-established institution among these peoples to circumcise their male children. The custom having been brought over from Egypt. Even the Athenians, they say, are colonists from Sais in Egypt. Diodorus. All right. So again, we're getting a bunch of whole different sources correlating with all the research we've already read in this other parts of this series and other videos, right? Like, I'm telling you the same thing. The descendants of Darda ruled ancient Troy for some hundreds of years until the city was destroyed in the famous siege of Troy, right? And that was by Danites. So it was literally Danites against descendants of Judah, the ruling house of Judah, right? Not everybody in Troy was probably related, but the ruling class was Judah. So that was the siege of Troy. You know, the whole horse and everything, that was Danites. The Aenis, the last of the royal blood, Zarah, Judah, you see, collected the remnants of his nation and traveled with them to Italy. There he married the daughter of Latinus, king of the Latins, and subsequently founded the great Roman Empire. Aenis' son or grandson Brutus. All right, here we go. We're cutting into future videos I was going to do. Brutus is from the same line of Darda that founded Troy. And Aenis comes out of that line. And through Aenis comes Brutus, who, right? London, right? Ended up in England, right? Brutus, with a large party of the Trojans, migrated to Malta, and there was advised to re-establish his people in the Great White Island, an early name for Britain, due to its chalk cliffs. All right, it's all connected. The right to rule still coming out of Judah lines. This advice is recorded in an archaic Greek form on the temple of Diana in Caer Troia, New Troy. A historic stone still stands in the town of Totnes on the shores of Torbay, commemorating his coming. Around circa 1103 BC, they're saying. Brutus then made contact with his kindred blood in Britain and built for himself a new capital city, to which he gave the name Caer Troia, or New Troy. The Romans later called it Londinium, now known as London. All right, you guys see? That's a deep story. That's a very short. I was going to have a whole video on that. I probably still will make it just to show you all the sources and all the legends and these old annals of Britain and Ireland and all these places. They have this written. It's history. It's not myth to them. It's actual annals, historical annals. I know a lot of people take this like we're talking about religion and Bibles, but it's history. This is what I'm trying to show you guys. New Troy founded, or London, which became London, or Lud, descendants of Lud. He remember said his kindred was there. There was other Israelites there before him, and he so-called Hebrews or Semitic people coming. Yeah. So the actual date of the founding of London is suggested in the Welsh bardic literature, and when Brutus had finished the building of the city and had strengthened it with walls and castles, he consecrated them and made inflexible laws for the governance of such as should dwell there peacefully. And he put protection on the city and granted privilege to it. At this time, Beli the priest ruled in Judea, and the Ark of the Covenant was in captivity to the Philistines, in ancient America, the Welsh brutes. The reference in the above quotation to Beli the priest is obviously of Eli, of the first book of Samuel. Such remote prehistorical antiquity of the site of London is confirmed by the numerous archaeological remains found there, not only of the New Stone and early Bronze Ages, but even of the Old Stone Age, thus indicating that it was already a settlement at the time when Brutus selected it for the site of his new capital of New Troy. According to the Harmsworth Encyclopedia, Cecrops, there we go, that's who it was, the Calco, the son of Zarah, the grandson of Judah. Calco is actually Cecrops, the Greek Cecrops. So, as it says in the Harmsworth Encyclopedia, Cecrops, or Calco of 1 Chronicles 2:6 and Chalco of 1 Kings 4:31, and brother of Darda, the found Dardanus, right, was the mythical founder of Athens. And his first king of Athens, the first king of Troy, is the line of Judah, if you don't know. Again, we're doing a little refreshed and a whole new source. That's what I'm talking about. All right? Remember that. We've gone over this. The famous mythological deities, Cecrops and Darda, these are actually real people. And they're listed in 1 Chronicles 2:6 and 1 Kings 4:31 as the sons of Zarah, the grandsons of Judah, okay? But we're clear on that. First king of Athens, the first kings of Troy. So who are the so-called Greeks? And this is why I try to remind you guys every time we're reading something, when they're generalizing, saying so-called Greeks, remember Greeks included many different peoples. What Greeks? Now that you understand that, right? What kind of Greek? He was thought to have been originally a leader of a band of colonists from Egypt. So we're talking about Cecrops or Calco, right? Dr. R.G. Latham, the ethnologist, asserts, neither do I think that the eponymous of the archive Danite was other than that of the Israelite tribe of Dan. The Danite are the tribes of Dan. Check out my Danite videos, guys. I have like 3 of them. Really good. I went really deep on those videos. A lot of good sources. All right. The Danite, the Danans, all these people are Danites. So again, a lot of Greeks are Israelites. That's why I was saying that who really invaded Troy and the siege of Troy were actually Danites going after, the royal line of Darda, like their cousins, Only we are so used to confine ourselves to the soil of Palestine in our consideration of the history of the Israelites that we treat them as they were adscripti glebai, and ignore the share they may have taken in the ordinary history of the world. They had a lot of influence in the world, these lines of the Israelites. All right, and that's quoted from Ethnology in Europe, book from 1852. You see that? There's so much drop in these old books. And again, these people are not talking about just Bible stories, they're letting you know this is real history and the ordinary history of the world. The influence has been ignored. Historical records tell of the westward migration of the descendants of Calco along the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, establishing Iberian Hebrew trade and settlements. One settlement, now called Saragossa, in the Ebro Valley in Spain, all right, Saragossa, Sarah, was originally known as Saragossa, meaning the stronghold of Sarah. From Spain, they continued westward as far as Ireland. The Iberians gave their name to Ireland, calling the island Ibern, which was later abbreviated to Ern and subsequently Latinized to Ibernia, a name that still adheres to Ireland. Iber. Note that in the pre-Exodus days, Abraham's descendants were still called by their more ancient name, Hebrews. See Exodus 2, 6, and 13, etc., or Hebrewites, Eberites. Didn't we just read that? Right. Remember, guys, last week Monday, we read the book Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge, Volume 1, and they were saying that American Indians were Eberites. Eberites, literally just same word, Eberites. Remember that? Being descendants from Eber, spelled Eber in New Testament scripture. Heber was Noah's great-great-grandson, and the great-great-great-grandfather of Abraham or Abram. Thus the Hibernians or Iberians who came to Ireland about 1700 BC were undoubtedly Hebrews. Right, undoubtedly Hebrews, descended from Abraham through Judah's son Sarah and grandson Calco. Later history records that these people grew considerably and expanded into Scotland. Many historical records point to Israel's presence, particularly Dan and Judah, in Ireland at a very early date. On Ptolemy's ancient map of Ireland, we find in the northeastern corner of the island such names as Dan Sowar, Dan's resting place, and Dan Sobers, Dan's habitation, Gladstone's Juventus Mundi, and the old Psalter of Cashel, Both state that some of the Grecian Danite left Greece and invaded Ireland. Writers such as Petanius and Hecatos of Adira, 6th century, speak of Danai as being Hebrew people, originally from Egypt, who colonized Ireland. Okay? The history of Ireland, by Moore, states that the ancient Irish, called the Danai or Danes, separated from Israel around the time of the Exodus from Egypt, crossed to Greece, and then invaded Ireland. The Tuatha de Danann means the tribe of Dan. All right, we got all this before. This is again a whole, crash course review of what we've gone over in this series, plus a little bit more specific, a lot of sources here too, so you can verify on your own. The Leabga Gabhala, or Book of Conquest of Ireland, give their earlier name as Tuatha de, meaning people of God. Tuatha de, meaning people of God, like Indios, like people of God, like Indios, people from God. The great Irish historiographer Eugene O'Curry says, the Danann were a people remarkable for their knowledge of the domestic, if not the higher arts of civilized life. The ships of the Tuatha de Danann are accredited with bringing Jeremiah, all right? Who brought Jeremiah? The tribe of Dan, the navigators. They brought who? So-called Phoenician seafaring, so-called Phoenicians. They brought who? Jeremiah and Jacob's pillar to Ireland. Ollam Fodhla. Among the early records and chronicles of Ireland, those known as the Plantation of Ulster or Plantation of Ulster are the best preserved and most complete. This is real historical records, guys. And you get people from Ireland know what I'm talking about if they're into the history there. They date back to about 700 BC and record the first important settlements of Hebrews in Ireland. One section of these chronicles are known as the Milesian records. They are named Milesian, meaning warrior, because they give an account of the genealogy and history of Ollam or William the Conqueror of Ireland, all right? And we've gone over his genealogy, his whole connection. The last person mentioned in the genealogy. Among the names in the genealogy of Ollam are several that are specifically mentioned as belonging to the red or scarlet branch of Judah, all right, from Zarah. The Milesians invaded Ireland at about 1000 BC, subjugating the Danann, all right? So see, even amongst them, they're conquering each other. It don't matter. These are different nations. And years have gone by, distant, very, very, very distant cousins, So Milesians invading Danites, Milesians, some of them are Sarah and Judah. So so it says later generations of Milesians, to whom were handed down the wonderful traditions of the Danann they had conquered, lifted them into a mystic realm. The greatest ones becoming gods and goddesses. See, they made the Danann gods and goddesses, but they were real people, giving rise to the early belief that the people in question were mythological. Both the Danann and the Milesians were kinsmen, all right? They were related, who long ages before had separated from the main Hebrew stem. Many historians today erroneously refer to these people as Celts and Gauls, whereas in fact they were only forerunners of the Celtic tribes that wound their several ways across Europe from the east. Turbulently meeting and finally blending in amity, and flowing onward in one great Gaelic stream into the islands of Britain, right? So-called Gaelic people now, huh? The Gaelic going back to being a Hebrew language, huh? Haven't we read this? See how it all starts making sense, right? The Celts were also kinsmen, but mainly of the latter westward migrations of the Israel tribes following their captivity in Assyria between 745 and 721 BC. It was Sarah's hand bound with a scarlet thread that probably accounts for the origin of the heraldic sign employed today in Ulster, Northern Ireland, consisting of a red hand cooped at the wrist with a scarlet thread. An ancient Irish record entitled Cursory Proofs lists 5 equestrian orders of ancient Ireland. Among these 5, one was called Craub Ruat, the Red Branch, The origin of this order was so ancient that all attempts at explanation have hitherto failed. These knights of the Red Branch called themselves Kraunuks, or the Crowned. Undoubtedly, these names have reference to the hand of the prince of the Scarlet Thread, Zarah, all right? And you guys see we have gone over the emblems, in part 3 of this. You guys go check out that part. That's the first overturn. The story of Jacob's pillar may be likened to an arch, the left-hand span of which, starting at Bethel, carries us through biblical history up to the destruction of Jerusalem about 584 BC. The right-hand span of the arch begins at Westminster Abbey in Britain and reaches backward to Tara in Ireland, just after 584 BC. The keystone upon which the story rests is the first overturning, containing Ezekiel's prophecy, chapter 21-27, that takes the stone from Jerusalem after the city's destruction to Tara. All right, Tara, Torah, Tara. From Bethel to Westminster is a long distance in both time and space. Any attempt to connect the two involves the necessity of reconstructing a consecutive, feasible story. There is a tradition that has subsisted from time immemorial and is quoted in official guides that the stone of Scone, right? This is Jacob's pillow right here we're talking about, set in the coronation throne. This is the coronation, it's under the coronation chair. All the kings get seated, get crowned, knighted, on this stone that it was Jacob's pillow, which they call the stone of Scone. And it's in Westminster Abbey now, is none other than that on which the head of Jacob rested, all right, when he dreamed of the ladder with angels ascending and descending upon it. It is just an interesting fable. Is it just an interesting fable? Traditions do not spring from nothing, and this one is at least worthy of impartial examination. So you think all these royal people will be still doing this, right? They'll still be following this tradition. They guard this stone, They all get crowned on this stone, right? Why would they be still doing this? The arrival in Ireland of the Bethel stone rests upon the authority of the ancient records of Ireland and the traditions which abound there. Here, let us understand that the ancient historical legends of Ireland are, generally speaking, far from being baseless myths. The Irish people are a people who eminently cling to tradition. Not only were the great happenings that marked the great epics enshrined in their memory forever, but even little events that trivially affected the history of their race were and are seldom forgotten. All right. The Irish poets and Shanachie, the historian of the remotest antiquity, were honored next to the king because of the tremendous value which the people set upon the recording and preserving of their history. The poet and the historian, following the fashion of the time, took advantage of their artist's privilege to color their narrative to an extent that to the modern mind would seem fantastic. But it was with the details of the story that they were granted this liberty. The big essential facts had to remain unaltered. The things of importance no poet of repute, however highly he might color, could or would dare to falsify. However strange are the storyteller's description of ancient tradition, when examined carefully provide substantial links which give credence to the basic truth of the traditions. The modern part of the story from Westminster back to Ireland rests on a succession of well-authenticated Irish, Scottish, and English historical documents, which may be regarded as practically undisputed. This is undisputable. Writers on the subject, quoting from such works as the Chronicles of Eire, the Annals of the Four Masters, this is what I was saying earlier about being recorded in these annals, the Annals of Clonmacnoise, etc., locate the stone originally at Tara, county at Meath, Ireland. Naturally, such early records as these are uncertain as to date, but from the manuscript Cambresis Eversus by Dr. Lynch, published in Latin in 1662 and translated in 1848, the year circa 584 BC may be taken as the Tara starting date. Scotia, all right, here we go again with Scotia. Again, we're getting all the little topics in one book. This is pretty good to go over. the review of a lot of the parts in the last videos in this series and other videos we've gone over. It says Scotia was one of the earliest names of Ireland. So named, it was said from Scotia, the daughter of the pharaoh, one of the ancient female ancestors of the Milesians. These people were commonly called Scoti or Scots, both terms being frequently used by early Latin historians and poets. The Irish legends also relate how this same Scotia, while in Egypt, married Gallo, Gathelus, a Milesian chieftain, and that from this union the kings of Tara were descended. The marriage is said to have occurred during the reign of Pharaoh, who was drowned in the Red Sea. This would have been the Pharaoh Hopra of the 26th dynasty, who provided refuge to Jeremiah and the daughters of Zedekiah, and who was later murdered in his boat in 566 BC. The Chronicles of Scotland by Hector Boissy, translated into Scottish by John Bellenden, 1531, tells us the ancestors of the Scots was Ane Greik Khalid Gathelus, father of Eokite the Heremon. All right, here we go, Heremon or Eremon, son, sometimes used to denote a descendant of Cecrops, Calco of Athens. All right, from the line of Calco or Cecrops, underways of Argus, king of Argives, who came to Egypt when in this time reigned in Egypt Pharaoh Giscardus of the people of Israel. Gathelus gained a great victory for Pharaoh against the Moris and people of Inet, and King Pharaoh gave him his daughter Khalid Scotia in marriage. His daughter, Volume 1. All right, this is all from their annals and historical accounts. We ain't reading the Bible here. It says neither the name or surname of Pharaoh is given, but the word Pharaoh is the Egyptian term for king or monarch. The fact that the records called Scotia the Pharaoh's daughter is proof that they knew her as merely the king's daughter. The king's daughter. All right. Listen to what they're trying to tell you here. It's just the king's daughter. They didn't really know. It was just saying Pharaoh's daughter. The Chronicles of Scotland continued the story of Gathelus, recording that he left Egypt with his wife Scotia, his friends, and a company of Greeks and Egyptians, rather, that to abide ye manifest vengeance of goodies, reference to God's judgment on the remnant that had fled to Egypt to escape Nebuchadnezzar, and traveling by sea, Mediterranean, after land time, he landed in the part of Spain called Lusitan. All right, they crossed the Atlantic, bro. They crossed the Atlantic, really. Yeah, you can get, there's a whole current that'll bring you right there over Ireland down to the Iberian Peninsula, all that, right? And they landed in this place in part of Spain called Lusitan, later called Portugal. After this, he built the city of Brigance and called his subjects Scotis in honor and affection of his wife. And peace having been secured, Gathelus sit in his share of marble within his city. This share of marble had such fortune and omen that wherever it was found in any land, the same land shall become the native land of the Scots. The Scottish sal Ayoyis and broke the land is hell, where yet find it both give weird is fail. Hey man, hey, my Gaelic ain't that good. Come on. Translation: the Scots shall brook that realm as native ground, if worse fail not, wherever this share is found. It should be noted that the student's English dictionary defines marble as any species of calcareous stone susceptible of good polish. It is reasonable to assume the marble chair referred to as the coronation stone or the betel stone, still in the hands of the descendants of Jacob, when in the care of Gathelus and his queen Scotia. Many of the ancient Irish records, when making reference to an eastern king's daughter, also mention an old man, a patriarch, a saint, a prophet, called Ollam Fodhla. All right, that's Jeremiah, guys. That's the biblical Jeremiah. The historical Ollam Fodhla of Ireland is Jeremiah. and his scribe companion called Simon Brug, Brak or Brik or Baruch, all right? Simon Baruch was with him, as if it is variously spelled. Reportedly, they carried with them many ancient relics. Among these were a harp, right? The harp, a symbol, I think in Ireland, right? An ark or chest, and a stone called in Gaelic Lia Fail, pronounced Lia Fail, meaning stone of fate or hoary of destiny. Tradition asserts that the Ollam Fodhla was none other than Jeremiah, the prophet, that the king's daughter was the heir of Zedekiah, the last king of Judah. Simon Brug is Baruch, was Jeremiah's scribe who figures prominently in biblical history. And the harp was the one belonging to King David. Come on now. That's the same harp they got, one of the national symbols, right? In Ireland, that's the King David's harp, man. Remember, he played the harp. He was a musician, man. The ark or chest, talking about the prester, man. The ark or chest was the ark of the covenant. Finally, the stone Lia Fail was the stone that Jacob anointed with oil at Bethel. One story relating to Scota tells of her son named Eokide, later called Eremon or Hedemon, meaning king, marrying a girl named Tia Tephi. All right, here we go. So many lineages coming together here. This is pretty crazy that when I'm doing this review, so let's just start remembering as well, right? So we got this Eremon, who was the connection of Scotia with Gathelus and Milesian. And Scotia is actually coming from Ramses and all these people who actually goes back, we saw, to Edom, Esau. Yep. Yeah, Ramses, these famous Egyptian pharaohs are actually Edomites. That's where she's coming out of, right? And then she's marrying Metellus, and then they have a kid, Heremon, and he's gonna be the one who hooks up with one of Zedekiah's daughters, one of the survivors, right? So he carries the line of Sarah through him. And now he's gonna get with somebody who's carrying the line of Phares through the females that survived. So he married a girl named Tia Tephi. The following account found in the Annals of the Kingdom of Ireland by the Four Masters states, Tia, sometimes spelled Tia, the daughter of Alaghald, son of Eve, whom Erehom married in Spain, was the Tia who requested of Erehom a choice hill of her doward, in whatever place she should select it, that she might be interred therein. The hill she selected was Drumcain, example, Timhead in Ireland, Volume 1, page 31. In the Chronicles of Eri by Milner, we find Eokide, the husband of Tia Tephi, associated with the stone Lia Fail. The account is titled The Story of Lia Fail and states, in the early days it was carried about by priests on the march in the wilderness, hence the much-worn ring still attached to it, one at each end. Later it was borne by the sea from east to west to the extremity of the world of the sun's going, an expression used by the Romans to describe Britain. Its bearers had resolved at starting to move on the face of the waters in search of their brethren, shipwrecked on the coast of Ireland, they yet came safe with Lia Fail. Eokide sent a car for Lia Fail, and he himself was placed thereon. The story of the stone was then repeated by his order, and Eremion or Heremon was seated on Lia Fail, and the crown was placed upon his head, and the mantle upon his shoulders, and all clapped and shouted, and the name of that place from that day forward was called Tara, spelled Tamra, in the Irish language. The fact that the story of the stone was repeated by his Eokide order suggests definitely that this stone was of an ancient origin and custom, quite possibly of the earliest Israelites, Another version lists Tia Tephi as being the daughter and heir of King Zedekiah, Scotia, her younger sister, having married in Spain, who accompanied Jeremiah to Ireland to meet and marry Eokide. In this version, Tia was made queen and her husband's coronation by Jeremiah on the stone of Bethel. The name of the capital is said to have been changed from Lothair to Tara. And the harp of David became the national emblem. The harp of David became the emblem. I told you. Irish national emblem is the harp of David. There are many other variations of the story of the stone being brought from Egypt to Ireland, which when added together presents us with a rather confused story. This is understandable when it is realized that the Irish records are compilations at a late date of very early tribal histories. Each of these, written in a tongue difficult to translate, gives its own aspect of the one great story. However, they all agree in the following. The stone, known as the Stone of Destiny, came from Spain, and before that from the real Egypt, guys, the real Egypt, the real Tamari, the real ancient Egypt in America. It came in the company of an aged guardian who was called Ollam Fodhla, Hebrew words that mean revealer or prophet. All right, so a lot of people don't even know those are Hebrew words that are being used in Ireland. Ollam Fodhla. Eokite Erimon, with his queen Tephi, was crowned king of Ireland upon the stone which remained at the palace of Tamar Brag. It was the coronation stone of every Ardrite high king or 18 for a period of about 1,040 years, from King Erehum or Hermon to the 131st Ardrite named Murkiartak. Tara attained the climax of its fame under Cormac, the son of Art and Lonely and grandson of Con of the 100 Battles. Khan, who reigned as High King in the 3rd century. Khan, a priest king. Cormac is unquestionably considered greatest by the poets, the Seanachis, and the chroniclers. The noted 17th century Irish historian O'Flaherty says, Cormac exceeded all his predecessors in magnificence, munificence, wisdom, and learning, as also in military achievements. His palace was most superbly adorned and richly furnished, and his numerous family proclaim his majesty and munificence. The books he published and the schools he endowed at Tamar or Tara bear unquestionable testimony of his learning. There were 3 schools instituted. In the first, the most eminent professors of the art of war were engaged. In the second, history was taught. And in the third, jurisprudence was professed. In Cormac's day, Tara must have been impressive. The great beautiful hill was dotted with 7 duns, and in every dun were many buildings, right? This is a mound, all of them wood and metal. The greatest structure there was the Mi Quarta, the great banqueting hall, which was in the Ardrite's own dun. It was probably the largest building of its time in either Great Britain or Ireland, measuring 700 feet in length and about 90 feet across. There the chiefs and their ladies listened to the stirring strains of the harp that once through Tara's halls did play. There was also the house of 1,000 soldiers. The ancient poets tell us each of the provincial kings had on Tara a house that was set aside for him when he came up to attend the great parliament. There was a Grayanan, sun house for the provincial queens and their attendants. The stronghold of the hostages was one of the structures. Another was the Star of the Bards, a meeting house for the poets and the historians, the doctors and judges. Great, noble, and beautiful truly was our Tara of the Kings, was the theme of the hundreds of ancient poets who sang the praises of Tara. Those words were not someone's fanciful imagination. Proof of this is found in the silent testimony of recently unearthed kingly ornaments. In recent times, the archaeologists have turned up, among others, 2 splendid gold torques, bands of twisted gold worn around the neck. One of them was 5 feet 7 inches in length, weighing 27 ounces. The other band was of larger size also, and weighs 12 ounces. Both of them are beautifully wrought. All right, beautifully wrought. And right here we just got a little diagram of the site of Tara. It says Fort of the Kings. Right, little forts here, little mounds. That's the church they got here, St. Patrick's Church. Ha, St. Patrick, huh? All right. As archaeological excavations on the mounds at Tara have also revealed that ancient Tara was not only the royal seat or capital of the Celtic kings that came from Spain, but it was also the nerve center of the country. 5 great arteries or roads radiated from Tara to the various parts of the country. The Slie Cualan, which ran toward the present county Wicklow, the Slie Mor, the Great Western Road, which ran via Dublin to Galway, the Slie Assail, which ran near the present Mullingar, and the Slie Dals, which ran southwest, and the Slie Mitlucra, the northern road. In order to cross the great central bogs, tracks were sometimes constructed of timber laid on the peat known as tokan. This term is still extant in place names such as Togi. All right, here's an aerial view of the hill of Tara. All right. It is worthy of note that the name Tara is the English corruption of the Irish word commonly written Timhara, which is the genitive of Timhar or Tamar. The final A has been aspirated according to the Hebrew rule of pronunciation, which in Irish has been extended to apply to the letter M. In this form, it almost disappears, making it sound like Tira, which to English ears becomes Tara. Since Tara is the genitive of Tamar, it never stands alone, because being a genitive, it must be by another noun. Thus, the great palace of Ulster, designed by Queen Tia Tamar, displaying a form of architecture which made it for centuries a wonder of Ireland, was called simply Dai Timhara, the house of Tamar. The name Tamar itself is also spelled Tamar in Matthew 1:3, where there is translation of words from Hebrew into Greek. The letter H is often dropped or added. Example, we find Eber in Genesis 10:21 called Heber, and Luke 3:35. Likewise, we find Abraham's father, Terah, called Tara, and Luke 3:34, which could with equal authority have been translated Tara without the H. The name Tamar is found in many places in Britain. For instance, the river dividing the two counties, Devon and Cornwall, is called the River Tamar. Tamar, according to Cornish directories, is derived from the same root as that of the River Thames. The latter is called Tamise in French, pronounced without sounding the letter H, as in English. Many bards have sung of Tara's halls, but one, Amergin, chief bard to King Dermot, a 6th century monarch, or Ireland, wrote of Tephi. A rampart raced around her house. For Tia, the daughter of a Luggaid, she was buried outside in her mount, and from her it was named Tia Mur. Lug or log is Celtic for God, and Aid is the same for house. Hence Tia Tephi is called the daughter of God's house, since Tia accompanied the stone of Bethel, God's stone, to the people of Ireland. She could have been none other than the daughter of that house. A celebrated bard, Cuan O'Coughlin, for a time regent of Ireland from AD 1024, collected the legends which in his day were prevalent concerning Tara, and ran them into a poetic selection, from which is taken the following. The gentle Heremon here maintained his lady, save in an impregnable fortress. She received from him all the favors she desired, and all his promises to her he fulfilled. Bregli of Tia was a delightful abode, on record of a place of great renown. It contained the great Mergesh, a sepulchre which has not been violated. The daughter of Pharaoh of many champions, Tephi, the most beautiful and that traversed the plains, here formed a fortress, circular and strong, which she described to her breastpin and wand. She gave a name to her fair fortress, this royal lady of agreeable aspect, the fortress of Tephi, where met the assembly, where every proceeding was conducted with priority. It may be related without reserve that a mound was raised over Tephi, as here recorded, and the bier beneath this unequal tomb, here formed for this mighty queen. All right. So, interrupting the poem real quick, she was buried in a mound, right? I wonder if she's 7 to 8 feet tall. right? Remember what they were doing in the mounds? They were finding, these are burials, a lot of them with high royal people inside these mounds, right, in the Americas. It says, it is mysterious not to be uttered. The length and breadth of the tomb of Tephi, accurately measured by the sages, was 62 feet of exact measure, as prophets and druids have related. Tephi was her name. She excelled all virgins. Rest for him who had to entomb her here. 60 feet or correct a measurement were marked as a sepulchre to enshrine her. It is asserted that all mankind may know that a mound was raised over Tephi as recorded, and she lies beneath this unequaled tomb, here formed for this mighty queen. A meeting was held to select a sepulchre in the south as a tomb for the beloved Tephi, Tamar, the impregnable of lasting resources which conferred on the woman high renown. The above legend describes Tephi as the daughter of Pharaoh, whereas most of the ancient Irish records and chronicles give her as the daughter-in-law of Scota, the daughter of Pharaoh, as explained previously. Such a discrepancy is understandable considering the time span in which the legend has been handed down, and in no way discredits the basic story. There is manifestly a mystery surrounding the burial of Tia Tephi, the great Medgic. The name given to the tomb of Tephi was once thought to be Celtic, but is now known to be Hebrew and significant. It designates a place of deposit for treasures, secrets, mysteries, etc. Considering the treasure, Ark of the Covenant, title deeds to Palestine, and various other relics or Hebrew marks of identity that Jeremiah could have had in his custody. The explicitness with which this tomb of Tephi is described is noticeable. Jeremiah 32:13-44 records evidences which God directs Jeremiah and Baruch to bury. The actual burial site of Tia Tephi is unknown today. However, the author has seen a stone at Tara with significant markings which suggest that it marks the grave vault of Ireland's first queen of the Davidic line. Davidic line. Perhaps in due time the grave will be opened, and the royal harp along with other relics will provide the evidence to convince all that God kept his covenant with David. 2 Samuel 7:13. All right. Shout out to anybody from the British Isles or Ireland in the chat. Shout out to the family in the chat from Ireland and the British Isles. Yeah. It says tradition has it that the harp of David was brought to Ireland by Jeremiah and is buried with Tia Tephi at Tara. It is a significant fact that the royal arms of Ireland is a representation of the harp of David and has been such for 2,500 years. The first mention of the harp is found in the Din Leonchis by Mac Awalgain, BC 574. All right, it says here Irish Free State emblem and the Aedi emblem, Edi. Vicencio de Galilei the Elder, in his Dialoga de la Musica, 1581 AD, mentions that the harp of Ireland owes its origin to the harp of David, this most ancient instrument commemorated Dante, was brought to us from Ireland, where such are most excellently worked and in great number. The inhabitants of the said island have made this their art during the many centuries they have lived there, and moreover it is a special undertaking of the kingdom, and they paint and engrave it in their public and private buildings, and on their hill, stating as their reason for so doing that they have descended from the royal prophet David. All right, he wrote that in 1581. Come on, he got that from the people. They told him that. The Irish harp was and is many-stringed instrument, and many harps of similar shape and stringing have been unearthed at Ur in Mesopotamia dating back to 2800 BC. But now they're going, the old world, the old world. The Clarsac or Highland harp of Scotland is a descendant of the early Irish harps, as is the Crwth or Clanseach, introduced into Wales 1098 AD by Griffith, King of North Wales, who was born in Ireland. In 1565, Buchanan, writing of the Western Isles, says they delight very much in music, especially in harps of their own sort, of which some are strung with brass wire, others with the intestines of animals. Wow, they ornament their harps with silver and precious stones. The lower ranks deck theirs with crystal. All right, ancient harps, huh? They brought that from where? They were coming out of America. So what you mean? If harps were strung with wire, they were held on the left side, plucked with nails grown long, the left hand taking the treble, if strung with gut. The harp was held against the right shoulder and struck with the cushion of the fingers, the right hand taking the treble. Strings were tuned by turning the pins with a key in Gaelic cran. Should the player of a wire-stringed harp displease, his punishment was to have his nails cut. The burial place of Ollam Fodhla, Jeremiah, all right, is claimed as being in two different places. Where is Jeremiah buried, huh? One is a tomb hewn out of rock in a cemetery on Devonish Island in Lough Erne. It has been known from time immemorial as Jeremiah's tomb. The other and best authenticated is located in Sciabla, Caelish near Old Castle County, Meath, in Ireland, not far from Tara. A huge cairn of stones marks the spot, and a large carved stone is still pointed out as Jeremiah's judicial seat. Some 30 stones with strange markings upon them lie in the sepulchral chamber within the cairn. The markings consist of a jumble of lines, circles, dots, and spirals. All right. And this is the inscription, I guess, that they're talking about there. All right. One interpretation of the hieroglyphics by George Dancy of Bristol is that they show a lunar eclipse in the constellation of Taurus and a conjunction of the planets Saturn and Jupiter in Virgo. The prow of a ship is shown in the center, with 5 lines indicating the number of passengers it carries. On the left, a part of the ship, perhaps the stern, is shown with only 4 passengers, one having been left behind or lost as indicated by the line falling away from the ship. The wavy line indicates the passage of the ship across the ocean, terminating at a central point on an island. A stellar calculation was made by Ver Robson, a friend of Dancy, of the astronomical interpretation of the hieroglyphics. This calculation established the date of Thursday, October 16, 583 BC, a date consistent with the stellar calculations of the mysterious inscription. Assuming Ollam Fodhla having been identified as Jeremiah, the inscriptions could have been a record of his journey from Egypt to Spain, from America to Spain, having in his care the 2 daughters of King Zedekiah. With them was Baruch, Jeremiah's secretary, and probably an attendant for the 2 princesses. The 5th passenger might have been Ebed Melech, the Ethiopian, that figures in some of the traditions. Illustrating a second part of the boat indicated another voyage of Jeremiah and a party of 4 to Ireland. Some authorities on Irish history have cited that the Annals of the Kingdom of Ireland by the 4 masters, edited from manuscripts in the Library of the Royal Academy and the Trinity College, Dublin, translated by John O'Donovan, MTIA, right, as a link between Ireland and Jeremiah. Ollam Fodhla is celebrated in ancient history as a sage and legislator, eminent for learning, wisdom, and excellent institutions, and his historic fame has been recognized by placing his medallion in basso relievo with those of Moses and other great legislators in the interior of the dome of the Four Courts of Dublin. The ancient records and chronicles of the kingdom were ordered to be written and carefully preserved at Tara by Ollam Fodhla, and there formed the basis of the ancient history of Ireland, called the Psalter of Tara. All right? This is real history here, guys, in Ireland, guys. Real history. Let them know, Peter. The Four Courts of Dublin, which was destroyed by fire some years ago. Oh man, they destroyed it with fire, huh? They'd have a large dome decorated with large medallions of the world's greatest lawgivers. They included Alfred, Solon, Confucius, Moses, and Ollam Fodhla. However, the Ollam Fodhla included in the medallions may not have been Jeremiah. The word Ollam means a learned man, and Fodhla was often used to indicate a king. On the medallion, Ollam Fodhla appears wearing a crown, but Jeremiah was not crowned. More likely, the Ollam Fodhla of the medallion was Eochaid, the son of Scota. The name Ollam Fodhla is found linked to Eochaid in a further account given in the Annals of the Kingdom of Ireland by the Four Masters. Ollam Fodhla, after having been 4 years in the sovereignty of Ireland, died at his own house at Tamar. Eochaid was the first name of Ollam Fodhla, and he was called Ollam because he had been first of a learned Ollam, and afterwards King Fodhla of Ireland, volumes 1, page 53 to 55. All right. So here, as you guys see, let me just zoom out a little bit. This is what they were talking about. This is a cairn, Ollam Fodhla's cairn in Low Crew Hill near Old Castle County, Meath. All right. They're saying that might be the tomb where Jeremiah is buried, guy. Biblical Jeremiah, man. If you're in Ireland, go check it out. Get some footage. Pretty cool, right? It says the crowning of Eochaid, the son of Scota. So let me see. I think I got is a colored version. A little grass, little stone, little mound here, or like a mound, right? That's a mound. So what's the coincidence is that they're burying people in mounds too? You know, who are the mound builders? What Egypt are they really coming from? This is what I've been trying to say. All right. The crowning of Eochaid, the son of Scota, daughter of Zedekiah, on the stone of destiny, completed the first overturn. This fulfilled the prophecy of the high tree, house of Pharez, being brought down, and the low tree, house of Zarah, being exalted. In addition, it completed Jeremiah's mission to build and to plant a seed of David's line through Pharez, which would again take root and bear fruit. In other words, that which had been the subject of prophecy concerning Jeremiah's commission and his royal charge is now recorded as a matter of history. All right. There are some who may object offhand without knowledge that an assignment of a Jacob Lewis origin to the coronation stone of Ireland is a matter of mere modern theory, the outgrowth of speculation. But this is an untenable position, for it has been known as Jacob's stone dating back to the earliest Irish traditions, okay? In the Encyclopedia Britannica, 11th edition, volume 14, page 569, under Innis Fail, the following is stated. Innis Fail, a poetical name for Ireland. It is derived from Fail or Lia Fail, the celebrated stone identified in Irish legend with the stone on which the patriarch Jacob slept when he dreamed of the heavenly ladder. The Lia Fail was supposed to have been brought to Ireland by the Dardanans and set up at Tara. By the Danites, remember they brought Jeremiah in their ship and they set it up at Tara as the inauguration stone of the Irish kings. Innis Fail was thus the island of the Fail, the island whose monarchs were crowned at Tara on the sacred inauguration stone. All right, that's in the Encyclopedia Britannica. All right, hold up. Let me see. Let me get another window open here real quick, guys. 1 second. For the dismount. Okay. This is Another book here we got for the dismount. All right. This is just real quick, just for reference, all right? Just so you see, there's so many of these books, there's so many legends like this. It says The Lost 10 Tribes by Reverend Dr. Joseph Wilde, right? All right. Let me go to page 175 real quick. It says The Throne of David, Discourse 19. England's prophecy fulfilled in the Berlin Congress, the harp of Tara, the harp of Israel, the future European alliances, royal succession of the house of Israel. All right, so he goes on about, some meetings and stuff, but we're gonna get to the good stuff here. Oops. Okay, right here on page 181. It says, when Nebuchadnezzar carried the Jews or the Israelites captive, he took the king Zedekiah with him and destroyed all his family and all the real royal seat of David. Zedekiah died in Babylon. He placed upon the throne of David Gedaliah. Now Gedaliah was not of the seed royal, but God was displeased and permitted the crown to go to others. Ezekiel was taken captive to Babylon in the reign of Jehoiakim, the father of Zedekiah. The prophecy of the text was written in Babylon and refers to Zedekiah, whom Ezekiel calls the wicked prince of Israel, whose day is come, iniquity shall have an end. Thus said the Lord God, remove the diadem and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low and abase him that is high. I will overturn it, all right? A lot of people overstand the scripture. They're repeating the same thing here. Now, all this is plain if we keep in mind that Zedekiah was the last prince of the house of David that ever reigned in Palestine or in the true promised land. God removed the diadem, but in the course of time a lawful heir of the seed of David shall appear, and the throne and the seed will be established again in Jerusalem. All right, again, we're reading the Lost 10 Tribes in 1882. That's what it's called, by Joseph Wilde. All right, this is from 1879. Oh, what happened? Why they play us like that? Why they play us like that? Okay. So it says Jeremiah tells us that with him he had the daughters of Zedekiah, who had by some means escaped the destroying edicts of Nebuchadnezzar. And from Jeremiah's book in the Bible, we learn that they visited Egypt, and from another verse in his book, we learn that a small number escaped. Now, Jeremiah, being the only prophet in Judah at that time, had a right to take charge of the royal seat. He could not stay in Egypt, nor in Palestine, nor would he go to Babylon. Where then did the prophet go? No doubt took ship with the Danites and sailed for Cornwall. Hopped aboard with the Danites, his cousins. Hey, man, you guys are the seafarers, man. Y'all been traveling, seafaring all over the world, leaving your name everywhere. Can y'all just bring me to Cornwall, please? In England, for this place was called Tarshish. We learn from Ezekiel the ships of Dan traded in tin and other things. History and tradition both agree that there landed on the coast of Ireland in the north a divine man and a princess. God had promised to Jeremiah his life wherever he went. But thy life will I give thee for a prey in all places whither thou goest. The north of Ireland had been settled with the tribe of Dan. They at once understood who their visitor was. They knew who they were. They called him Ollam Fodhla, meaning a divine man or teacher. The princess was called Tephi, the beautiful one from the east. The princess was married to Heremon of Ulster, the king of Lothar Crofen, for such was the name of the city of Tara. This word Tara is Arat spelled backwards. The Hebrew reads from right to left, English left to right. Lothar Crofen was changed in Tara at the time of the wedding. Tara means law, Torah, the law. Thus began the seed of David's to take root, and from there it spread over all Ireland, then to Scotland, thence to England, and Jacob's stone in Westminster Abbey marks the journey of David's throne, and has always kept with the seed, and they have been always crowned on it. Ezekiel's riddles at once solved. The tender twigs were Zedekiah's daughters. One of these twigs was planted by the great waters in a land of traffic. Our Episcopalian friend intended by their beautiful service to aid the members of their communion to read in order and through the Bible or given portion of each chapter once per year. All right, so that's let me see. Let's go. Keep going down. All right, this is the dismount. All right, you guys see, you can pause it if you want to read it. It says here, the genealogy of the son of Queen Victoria from Zedekiah, we will furnish you. Oh, listen to what they're going to do right here. It says, this genealogy has been got up by the faithful and very persevering labors of the late Reverend F.R.A. Glover, M.A. and Reverend A.B. Grimaldi. So this is according to them, right? They're going to show us the list here. And it starts with Adam to Victoria, right? So, of course, the patriarchs, Genesis, going all the way down to Noah, right? Which was right here. Then you got Shem, right? Arphaxad, where Eber comes out of Arphaxad. Then from Eber comes Abraham, right? And then from Abraham, you get Jacob, right? And then from Jacob, you get Judah. And from Judah and Tamar, you get Sarah, right? And then I don't know what's this. And you got Hezron, Aram. So there's a whole other line they went by, right? I don't know about all this. This is like the biblical one. Jesus, I think. Yeah. So then kings of Israel, King David, Solomon. See this? All the previous kings, this is from the line of Phares. These are all from the lines of Phares, right? And then Zedekiah the last. And then you got Herimon, who hooked up with Tephi, which is the daughter of Zedekiah, continuing the line. Remember, Herimon is bringing a lot of Judah lineage and lines of Sarah and Danite. He had a lot of different lineage. He had Judah, Danite, and Sarah, probably even more. And Scota, right? She also had his mom, Scota. And then Kiti Tephi, his wife, Zedekiah's daughter. And then you get King Lia Fail and so on. So this is just one list. There's other lists we've shown, actually, But in general, most of the stories match in their annals, as you guys can see. And it keeps going, supposedly. Yeah, you see, all the way to supposedly Victoria. So see, all of a sudden there's like a split, kings of Argyllshire. Okay, so it keeps going. Sovereigns of Scotland. So Kenneth II, remember who these people? Kenneth, Malcolm, Kenneth. We gone over this in the book, Ancient and Modern Britons. What they look like, how they are described. Swarthy, yeah, King Malcolm. So keep going. Robert the Picts. Keep going. King James, Mary, and here we go. King James VI. And yeah, the more modern people, as you guys saw. Jeremiah and St. Patrick, huh? We're gonna have to get to that in another chapter, in another episode of Israel and the nations of Europe. Again, I know a lot of you enjoy the readings, don't mind that I keep going and reading no matter how long the video is, but we try to make them at least a decent amount of time. It's about an hour and 40 minutes now that we've been reading, so we're gonna leave it there. And we're gonna include all those other parts. I just wanted to show you guys. I mean, I can keep going. There's so many books talking about, there's so many different people that correlated, and just the annals speak for himself, of Ireland, Scotland, England. This is real history, guys. This is real history. So I don't know. Hey man, hey Olmec, that's you, right? You Kane Rico? That's you, right? I just want to make sure I'm giving credit to the right people, man. That's you, right? Let me know, man. Oh, that Con Mayo, that's yours, right? That Con Mayo. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate everybody that tuned in, came here on your Monday, took time to come listen to me. Hope you enjoyed this reading. I think it's very important. I think it's very deep, this research right here. It means a lot, I think, again, aside from from what people think of the Bible and religions. And again, we're not doing religion. We're not just talking about Bible stories. We're talking about real history here. Real history. Again, we read the book Jacob's Pillar, Biblical Historical Study. All right. That was pretty good. Kind of talking about a lot of different topics that we've gone over in this series. Make sure to catch the previous episodes of this series right here. This is part 4. Make sure to watch part 1, 2, and 3. You're gonna enjoy it, especially if you like this. You're probably gonna enjoy those even better. And put more time into it. They weren't live, they were pre-recorded, you know? All right. I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm glad. I'm looking at the chat. You're very welcome. Yeah, this is a real deep history. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that I mean, we might be looking at Jeremiah's tomb right here, you know, and the whole history that we don't know about, or what happened after. You know, a lot of the biblical stories, we don't have the outcome, what happened after. And this is what I'm trying to show you guys. You know, remember, a lot of these people got sent to the Americas. So, yeah, hey, Nitzia, thank you. Appreciate you, man. Thank you, man. Much love, sister. Much love, sister. Thank you. Yeah, make sure to catch up. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna get back in the grind. See what we're gonna come up with tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed that video I did yesterday. That was pretty deep too. Gonna keep reading that book. Got so many other topics to talk about, guys. Every day I'm like, so what do I show them today? It's just got so much to go over. You know, so many different topics. I just want to not get too far off on one and then leave the other ones behind, and let's just try to do a little bit here and there every day. It's something different. So I hope you guys appreciate that and enjoy that, keeping it current. You know, the research keep going as well. Let's not forget about what we've learned before. All right, this is a deep series right here. Check out the previous parts. All right. Shout out to everybody that tuned in. We're going out with Con Mayo, instrumental Con Mayo. Enrico, you already know. You already know. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow.